Good evening, and I'd like to call the January 20th, 2026 meeting of the North Bend City Council to order. Will the clerk please call roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Errol Tremolata,
Present.
Councilmember Brendan Elwood,
Present.
Councilmember Mark Jocelyn,
Present.
Councilmember Heather Cullen,
Present.
Councilmember Rob McFarland,
Present.
Councilmember Christina Restic,
Present.
Councilmember Susan Torgerson.
Present.
All are present, Your Honor.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Will Councilmember Rustic please lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Once again, at this time, I'll be asking Mayor Pro Tem Tremolata to make a motion to approve the agenda. However, prior to him doing so, would be the time for council to inform us if they would like to move an item or pull an item from the consent. Mayor Pro Tem, will you please make that motion to approve?
Pull it before or pull it after?
Yeah. Pull it before.
Sorry. Motion to move item number 1, the minutes from the consent agenda.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Rustic and second by Ms. Torgerson.
I'd also like to, is this now I say what I want to do as well?
Point of order, Your Honor. It seems to me that the motion to approve the agenda should be put on the floor prior to its being amended to remove an item which can then be addressed and voted on prior to going back to the main motion and moving adoption of the agenda as amended.
I agree. Okay, we'll take it from there.
Motion.
Okay.
Motion to approve the January 20th, 2026 agenda as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Tremolata and second by Mr. McFarland. Thank you very much. Jocelyn, excuse me. My hearing's off. My apologies. Okay, all in favor? What? Oh, now is the discussion. I'm getting used to this now. Now is the discussion time. So, any discussion? Okay, come on in.
Yes. Thank you. I would like to pull item number 1, the minutes from the consent agenda.
Okay, sounds great. And do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Rustic and seconded again by Ms. Torgerson. Favor? Or we can talk.
Yeah.
We'll wait on that.
So I will speak to my amendment.
Yep.
Yes, I'd just like to add to the minutes on page number 1 from the last council meeting where it says the second motion, Councilmember Torgerson moved. Seconded, I'd like to have added for the purpose of further discussion by Councilmember Rustic.
Excellent.
That's all.
Okay, that's great. Ms. Torgerson, do you have something to change?
Do we need to?
We should take I'm sorry, point of order.
Yep.
That's a proposed amendment to the minutes that I think should be adjudicated prior to moving on to further issues.
Or does the person who does a second also make a comment?
Yep. Now would be the time for that, Ms. Torgerson?
Yeah, I agree. That was definitely said in that meeting.
Okay. Moving on. Yeah.
Do we, for point of clarification, do we vote on this? And then I'd also would like to take something off of the consent agenda.
You would vote on this,
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
close this one out, and then you move to the next.
Thank you.
We get a rhythm to it. So we're going to take the vote now. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. Moving on.
Yeah, I would like to, it's unclear to me, the checks on the consent agenda, are they just payroll check or are they accounts payable checks or are they also payroll checks? I wanted a clarification on that. If they were payroll checks, I'd like those to be taken off a consent agenda.
There is no payroll checks in this batch. I'll confirm with Martin. Mr. Chow.
That's correct.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And I don't need to move them off.
No action to be taken.
Right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so now we can move on.
We're back to the motion.
Back to the motion.
Yep, for the full agenda now that we've passed. Yep, as amended.
Approving the agenda as amended.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on, a little clunky, but we're moving. We'll now move on to consent agenda. We have three items or two items on the consent agenda. Three items on the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
We just voted that.
Yep.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. And a second to that.
Second.
Okay, motion by, thank you very much, and second as well. All in favor to that?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going on to audience participation. Since we will no longer be taking public comment after every item on the main agenda, now be the time to come forward to the podium to comment on the agenda item, or any other item you wish to speak about. If you have requested accommodation with the city clerk and wish to speak through the virtual platform, please raise your hand and we'll take comments after in-person comments. Please remember to state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes for the record to speak. Anybody tonight? Bill, anybody online?
Not tonight, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to announcements, presentations, and appointments. Item number 4, presentation Parks Commission report and 2026 work plan. At this time, I would like to invite Parks Commissioner Kyle Braun, hi Kyle, to come forward and provide us the Parks Commission report for the 2026 work plan. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. I assume Mike provided the report in the packet, so I'll try to summarize a little more detail. Try not to just read it off to you. So yeah, 2025, we had a good year. We did a lot. Starting off the top there, we had some expenditures for our small park improvement budget in the amount of around little over $10,000, which we elected to use for 2 new picnic tables at the Tollgate Farm barn and farm stand. Oh yeah, well there's a slide to put up as well. There you go. And that used up the rest of our budget there. And then in terms of activities, there's a lot of projects going on right now. So we provided our input as the commission on a number of them. I'll list them off here and kind of give some detail on them. But the Bendigo Boulevard multi-use trail, which is the shared use path along 202. So we worked with the city, provided feedback on the alignment and some amenities along the way. And I believe that is slated to go to construction April. And the cycle mobility plan, which is an ongoing project in the city. So we worked with in several work groups to come up with some goals and to address some of the potential improvements that we could make throughout the city just for bike and pedestrian use throughout the area. So that's an ongoing thing that we'll continue to work on into next year and hopefully wrap that up. The shoreline access plan, the city received a grant from the Department of Ecology, and we worked with the city's consultant to identify areas for potential shoreline access on the Snoqualmie rivers and within the shoreline jurisdiction throughout the city. We identified few projects that we think align with some of the PROS plan goals and also some of our partnering agency goals. And that I believe was approved and adopted, in September. So that was a cool project. We looked at some spots on the river within the city that you wouldn't otherwise see just from our regular trail system we currently have. We did some dog park planning, so that is that comes up a lot in our surveys, and maybe this can come up. I can stand up straight. That comes up a lot in our surveys. So we looked at several locations throughout the city. Dahlgren Park was identified, our newest park, kind of in the eastern end of the city there. There's an open area, kind of low spot. We identified that as a potential location, but we want to try it out, see how popular it is. So we proposed doing a seasonal dog park, which we've seen in other cities around King County, where they put up a park basically for the summertime. And we are a little concerned about just the seasonal conditions of what that'll do in the wintertime. So we're going to try it out and see. And then we also express more interest in working with King County to pursue something out at Tanner Landing, which is already kind of an informal dog park, but we will see how that continues to develop. And then we would likely like to pursue partnering with King County to form more of a permanent one, but it'll be good to see next year how the pop-up one is used. We worked with the city's consultant. We reviewed the Ballarat Avenue pedestrian plaza in front of the Bar and Grill, which connects to William H. Taylor Park there. Provided some recommendations on the concept and hope, I'm not sure where that is right now, but I think we need to acquire some property, but it's cool to see that at least moving along. Concepts are always fun to look at. The park wayfinding signage plan, went back and forth on this quite a bit. There's quite a bit of wayfinding throughout the city currently. So we provided some kind of goal recommendations to the city, and then we didn't put on the docket this year for funding, but because we didn't have enough money set aside. So we're looking at coming up with a more concrete plan in 2026, and then potentially working with a consultant in 2027 to come up with a good wayfinding plan for the valley. And I know many other partnering agencies throughout the upper valley outside the city are also looking at wayfinding right now too. So we want to make sure we're leveraging all the opportunities that come with, areas outside the city. Let's see here. Ballarat Avenue Plaza. I think I just mentioned that earlier. Tollgate Farm Stand. So as I mentioned before, we did spend our small park improvement budget on picnic tables out there. So they'll be located in general vicinity. We haven't an exact spot for them yet, but we have one regular picnic table and then one ADA wheelchair accessible picnic table that should actually be arriving tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but this week sometime. And then we'll look to install those within the next month before spring. We had some public outreach. We staffed a booth at the block party, and then also the August 13th farmers market at Skyview. Just solicit input on our various park and trail projects going on throughout the city, and bike plan survey, which I mentioned before. Meadowbrook Farm Prairie Loop Trail design. That's been a pretty complicated project that city is working on. I think Mike is leading it, and we provided feedback on the proposed alignment through Meadowbrook Farm in partnership with City of Snoqualmie. And right now there's a King County Parks Capital Grant, which was only for design. But that kind of leads into the next thing. We did also prioritize some park impact fee money, which we recommended using towards the Meadowbrook Trail project because it was already in design, and the permitting for that will be fairly complicated. So we want to see the effort of doing the complicated design actually get built. So we recommended putting the money towards that, or a potential grant match for King County levy proceeds, which I don't believe they have the grant program any longer. Arbor Day recognition. I was not there, but I believe the mayor was on November 14th at Ryberry Creek on the South Fork Snoqualmie River, where we planted native trees for habitat restoration in partnership with Mountain to Sound Greenway. So that's everything we did in 2025. So 2026, we also have a lot coming online. So I mentioned the North Bend Bike Plan. We'll work in tandem with the Economic Development Commission, and hopefully have something put together in 2026. I know staff's been working hard on that. Update the park comprehensive plan, addressing some of the requests from Snoqualmie Tribe for tree canopy. And then we'll do our annual park tour when the weather allows. And then support staff with the Meadowbrook Prairie Loop Trail, and hopes to get enough construction funding so we can build that long planned trail alignment. And then, as mentioned, we worked on this year, but the wayfinding signage plan for consideration by council for funding in 2027 by a consultant. And then our regular outreach, the block party, farmers market, dog park coordination with King County. We'll have some more money for our small park improvement fund. So some smaller scale park projects that we'll be looking at that didn't make it this year, but we do still have a kind of a running list, and then coordination with Public Works on some of their ongoing trail projects, Tanner Trail Extension, the Tollgate Farm, shared use pathway as mentioned, McClellan Avenue, which that'll be an exciting one now that they moved the rails over there by the train station. And then William H. Taylor and Ballarat, that whole kind of area getting redone will be great. And then roundabout landscaping, I didn't see that one on there. And then South Fork, Snoqualmie levee setback trail design. So still early, but be looking at that. And then focus some more of our energy, and because we are the city's tree board, but looking at what we can actually do as a tree board. I know there's been discussions about hiring a city arborist, so looking at that a little bit more. And then tree board, Arbor Day planning, and kind of ongoing as we have done this year, but reviewing park open space and landscaping for new development projects. Sorry if that was a wordy one, but
No, sorry at all. Thank you, Kyle. Council, do you have any questions for Ron? No question? Oh, Rob?
Well, comments really. First off, wow, accomplished a ton last year. Very ambitious program for this year. You realize you're about a month in already, right? So,
yeah.
Just to be sure. Just because I'm familiar with some of these, I was a little confused on the Meadowbrook Loop. I thought that was further along, and that with the grant might need some staff input on that, but I thought we were past design and heading toward construction. Is there more than one?
Well, I'll let Mike correct me if I'm wrong.
He's already holding his hand up.
It's I mean, from my understanding, I mean, it's a complicated project in that there's a lot of critical areas. We're in the floodway, so there's a number of complicated permits that need to get done. And with permits come a lot of consulting fees. And what ended up happening is the design budget was basically ate up majority of the grant, and it was a design and construction grant, which the city renegotiated to basically be a design only. So now we need to get construction funding. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but it seems simple, a gravel trail through a field, but I don't think any projects around here are as simple as they might like to think they are. So
that's great.
60% maybe.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to correct or not, but I
Well,
think
right.
that helped me.
I was looking for a microphone.
Right, just to affirm, yes, that is a design only grant. And we would need to pursue additional funding for construction. So that would be a separate project. We're also exploring right now some kind of broader goal setting for Meadowbrook Farm. So that might influence some of that direction in terms of the Meadowbrook Prairie Loop Trail. I also wanted to just add a thank you to the Parks Commissioners. So you've got a fantastic board of volunteers. These guys don't want to just sit and talk about things, but they actually roll up their sleeves and do the work. So as an example, with the wayfinding sign program, the Parks Commission has divvied up the city, and they're going out in person to different districts of the city to do inventory of where those needs are. And they're coming back to then plan further for that. So it's just an example that these guys really engaged. So fantastic.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions from council for either Mike or Mr. Braun? Oh, Ms. Rustin. Oh, sorry, Mark.
I just wanted to confirm that I don't believe the alignment of the trail at Meadowbrook has been changed as of this point in time. It was just the grant funding that needed to be shifted around. I wanted to reiterate Mike's comments that and just thank the Park Commission and Kyle, yourself, and all the other members who serve as volunteers. It's not surprising to learn that you go above and beyond, and it makes our city better, and it makes our job as commissioners, as council members, easier. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. Ms. Rustick.
Thank you. Thank you. I echo that. I was going to say thank you, but I know we get emails from, residents around things that they would like to see. And I just want to say that I know that your list, both your past and your present list, hit a lot of the things that we hear from residents. So thank you.
Great. Anybody else wish to comment? Ms. Cohen.
Thank you so much. I had no idea when I first got on council how complicated Parks was. You deal with a lot of really interesting issues, and it's not as easy as you think. Like, la la la, we're going to build a park. It's not like that. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Ms. Cohen. Ms. Torgerson.
I'm just going to say thank you for all the work you've done. I mean, I know it's a lot of work and you had a lot to say, so that meant there was a lot to do last year and going forward. So thank you for doing all that for us. Thanks.
Excellent. Anybody? Mr. Elwood.
I'll just echo everybody's sentiment here. That's quite an achievement list of what you guys all accomplished. So thank you very much. And just tell the rest of the committee, we appreciate all the effort and labor and everything that you guys are doing for the betterment of our community. Very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Excellent. And Kyle, thank you from, I know how hard your team works and you do. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because the efforts are clearly noticeable and it's appreciated by the community and of course the council and myself. So thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, we'll now move on to committee and commission reports. Let's take away with Councilmember Torgerson with CED, please.
Okay, so we met a couple hours ago. It was a little bit longer than normal. It was an hour and a half instead of just an hour. But we first talked about the Planning Commission work plan, which is going to affect also, council as well. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have the work plan go back to the CED on February 17th. And then we'll have potentially go to the March 3rd agenda for council. At the council retreat on February 10th, we might be talking about it then because we're talking about the vision which might affect the work plan. And so then we could also talk about the work plan on February 24th at our work study as well. So there's a lot of talking on that. And then we continued on the 2030 Maine affordable housing, which we got an update on that. I know Councilmember Jocelyn and myself were not on the committee last year, so it was nice for us to hear an update on all the latest information. So we got that update, and then after asking a few questions, we did decide to have that go to the council meeting on February 3rd for a vote from council, so it'll go on that agenda. And then we also discussed some other options for part of the work plan, part of the vision, and then James understands what's going on with that. He'll put that in the right appropriate spot. Is it work plan or is it another agenda item for CED? And then we also decided that because we were in there for an hour and a half, that we would look at the CED activity report, which is amazing and we all love it. We confirm that, and that if we have any questions, we'll just email them. So that concludes the report.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rustick, would you like to provide us with finance and administration and then following Eastside Fire and Rescue? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So the Finance and Administration Committee met Tuesday, January 13th in the adjournment room at 4:00. We did have discussion, obviously forming, start of the year, forming our now modified committee from the prior years, but we discussed moving the ongoing finance committee meetings to the first Tuesday of the month at 2:30 instead. So that is a change. Next up was the ordinance amending the 2025-2026 budget, which is on tonight's agenda. Then we discussed the water and sewer rate study and the results and call for public hearing, which will be on the February 3rd agenda for first reading and public hearing. That was a pretty lengthy discussion with a lot of questions. And our meeting also ran an hour and a half. So the next item was the NeoGov HRIS payroll software licensing agreement, which is on tonight's agenda, and the City Hall Annex improvement for King County. And that was scheduled for the regular agenda tonight, but anyway. And that was it, just some general updates to our Finance Committee. And that was it. We will meet again on the first Tuesday of February. And then leading into East Side Fire and Rescue. I gotta find the right papers. We actually had 2 meetings since our last council meeting. December 11th, where there was a recognition for the retirement of longtime Deputy Director Pam Bryson and Lieutenant Bill Pitt. And then our new fire chief, Will Aho, took the oath of office. So that was his first, the December meeting was his first meeting as chief. We also elected the board vice chair, which is Issaquah Council member Lindsay Walsh. For this year. There were a number of candidates that were interested in that position, and she was selected. And then there was conversation about the 2026 legislative agenda and annual calendar as it relates to East Side Fire and Rescue. And that led into, so that was December. Then the board met again on January 8th at 4:00, where the oath of office was taken by the Assistant Chief Brian Culp, who was the chief of the Fall City Fire Department, which has now become a contract to East Side Fire and Rescue. So that was a big positive addition to East Side Fire and Rescue. Not only does he bring a tremendous amount of experience, but it strengthens the East Side Fire and Rescue total organization across the valley. So that was a good thing. I spent the majority of the meeting talking about the board's priorities for the year. So a lot of discussion there, and also evaluations for the fire chief goals and year-end evaluation. And then again, talked about the 2026 legislative agenda and calendar. So this is going to be a budget conversation year, so I will keep the council apprised as things go forward with regard to how the East Side Fire and Rescue budget could impact our city. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. That's all.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Councilmember Elwood, would you like to provide the Public Health and Safety report for us?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, Public Health and Safety Committee met January 6th at 4 p.m. at the City Hall Adjournment Room. We had a fire update from East Side Fire Rescue, a police update from Snoqualmie Police Department. Some of those discussions were just high-level tidbits on the flooding situations and things like that. So that was a great update. We also discussed the public defender contract renewal, just some administrative kind of business stuff that's coming down the pipe that we're having to think on and vote on, I think tonight, in fact. Then we talked about the ILA for the Sunnyside Jail contract. And we also discussed ICE operations in North Bend, specifically talking with Snoqualmie Police Department, Chief Horsey, about Snoqualmie Police Department's policy with respect to ICE, which, as I understood it, is essentially if they are coming to our community, they will call our police department and they will identify the individual. And that is essentially the extent of it. We have no facilities that are supposed to be used for ICE operations or anything like that, as far as I know. The sheriff's representative, unfortunately, wasn't able to attend, so we'll get their point of view on ICE policy within the North Bend as well at our next update. And we also learned that there's some financial, through grant funding and other financial support from the state, that through the police services and law enforcement agencies and other agencies, that if they take those monies and they are compliant or working with ICE, they will lose those fundings or something to that component. So at the state level, it seems like there's some separation of powers there based on monies that are available. I know that sounds kind of choppy, but we can discuss that if anybody's interested. Chief Horsey can also address it if there's any questions. Other than that, that was a healthy, robust PHS committee meeting. Our next meeting is the first Tuesday of next month. So it's the first Tuesday of every month, quite frankly, in the adjournment room next year. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Colon, would you like to provide transportation, public works, please?
Thank you. So Tom Moore, our new Public Works Director, and I decided to cancel the December 15th meeting due to the flooding and all of the stress that our staff was under. And so we will have our next TPW meeting on January 27th.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tremolata, would you like to provide council work study, please?
We have the council work study on December 23rd was canceled, and we have an forthcoming work study next week on that'll be the 27th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, Planning, Parks and Economic Development Commission reports, please.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and council members. The Planning Commission met on December 3rd and made a recommendation on the dockets received from the public for the annual docketing process, as well as the Planning Commission 2026 work plan drafted by staff. The commission also reviewed draft amendments to the city's sign regulations. The Planning Commission will next meet tomorrow evening, January 21st, and will continue review on a draft amendments to the sign regulations. The Parks Commission did not meet in December. They will next meet on January 28th and will discuss scoping for amendments to the parks element of the comprehensive plan, addressing prospective amendments to the Parks Capital Facilities Plan, and policies from Snoqualmie Tribe comments, and in consideration of an update to the parks impact fee rate study being performed by the city consultant Bowman. The Parks Commission will also discuss Parks Commissioner reconnaissance around the city for recommendations for future wayfinding signage improvements. The Economic Development Commission met on December 18th and received an update on the city's emergency response to the December storm and flooding and how the city supported local businesses. The commission then continued to develop their top 10 priorities for 2026, which focused on mountain town character, outdoor recreation, creative arts, and support for local businesses. The commission will next meet on January 22 to finalize their top 10 priorities, which they will then share at a joint meeting with the City of Snoqualmie Economic Development Commission on February 18th.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Let's move on to regional reports. Anybody on council have anything to offer? Ms. Torgerson.
The Law, Safety, Justice Committee and we discussed the new program for next year. We talked about potentially what we'd be talking about next year, but we also got an update from the criminal justice sales tax representative, Gail Stone. She was explaining to us that they really want to be flexible and try and help people to be able to take advantage of the sales tax. And so if we have any questions, definitely have our staff contact them, and they try to work through it if they can try and make it for whatever hoops they want to put them through. She wants to try and make there be less hoops, basically, is what she's explaining. Because there's a new executive, King County staff, they're rehiring everybody. And so we don't have any meetings scheduled for probably a couple of months as they are staffing King County. So I may not have a report until maybe April.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from council have anything? Mr. Jocelyn.
The Sound Cities Association Public Issues Committee met on December 10th, 2025. There was a acknowledgement of the old and thanking folks who had served previously, some of whom who did not get reelected or were moving on, and then the welcoming of the new. The executive director gave a report. He spoke, and there were elections. Federal Way Councilmember Lydia S.F. Dawson has been approved as the 2026 SCA PIC chair, and Redmond Councilmember Melissa Stewart has been approved as the 2026 SCA PIC vice chair. There were regional board and committee appointments that were discussed. Topics that came before the body. interestingly, in terms of this council, their support for safe use of e-bikes and e-motorcycles was a topic of discussion. There were some amendments specifically to expand state regulations to address the rising popularity of e-bikes was an amendment that I interestingly opposed simply because all they need to do, I think, is clarify state law. I don't know that they need additional regulation. Simple clarification of what's on the books would be helpful. But that's a topic of concern across the region and to the Public Issues Committee. And then the modernization of liability laws to protect the city and taxpayers from frivolous lawsuits is coming forward. There is a list of topics that will be addressed and of concern to the body throughout the year. One of the things that was added to that list was concern about utility rate affordability. The next meeting will be held February 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. Anybody else? Did I miss? No? Okay, we're going to move on to introductions. Item number 5, AB 26-004, ordinance amending 2025-2026 budget. Mr. Cha, would you please provide, there you are, provide the report for us tonight. And thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. For the record, Martin Cha, Finance Director. This is item number 5 on your agenda, Council, AB 26-004. This is budget amendment number 3 for the 2025-26 biennium. This amendment, Council, does two things. One, it increases the police department budget by $583,000 in 2026, and it also earmarks $685,000 of general fund ending fund balance for police services in 2027. There is a revised agenda packet on your dais that reflects the correction of the set aside of the general fund balance to $685,000. This item, as Councilmember Rustic mentioned, was reviewed by FNA at our last meeting on January 13th, and that was approved with a due pass recommendation for this council. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the increase in the 2026 police budget first. As you know, Council, for the first 3 months of 2026, we're under contract with the city of Snoqualmie. And then under the ILA that was approved with that city, our cost for this period is $870,000. For the remaining 9 months of 2026, we will be under contract with the King County Sheriff's Office at a cost of $2,488,000 for a total cost of $3,358,000 for the entire year. The first part of this budget amendment would increase the budget for the police services budget within the city by $583,000 so that there is sufficient budget authority to cover that total cost of $3,358,000. And the funding sources for this includes two things. Number one is $425,000 of administrative service reductions. As you recall, we discussed this in the work study council, and $158,000 that we would need to take from the general fund ending fund balance. And again, this would be in the year 2026. I'm gonna pause there just for a second. Do you have any questions on this part of the budget amendment?
Any questions for Mr. Cha?
Is this the same amount that was discussed in the November Finance Committee meeting? Is this the same?
When you say this amount, are you referring to the total?
Numbers on the screen.
Councilmember Torgerson.
583.
Councilmember Torgerson, will you make sure you hit your mic if it's not on? We
It's
can't
on,
hear you very
I'm
well.
not close enough, apparently. In November, I think, was it November 12th? We were discussing these in the finance administration. These are the same numbers, correct? They're not changed from that
That's correct.
meeting. Okay.
Next slide, please. The second part of the budget amendment, as I mentioned, is to use $158,000 of ending fund balance. I wanted to walk you through where we're at on the general fund ending fund balance, council, and to help you understand the mechanics of what this means. So for the 2026 beginning fund balance for the general fund, we're going to start the year with about 5.49 million. That compares to a budgeted beginning fund balance of, a budget ending fund balance of 4,844,000, leaving a difference of $488,000. So the good news on that is we're starting the year stronger than what we have budgeted. And that will be available to fund police services in future years. Next slide, please. Now, with that 488,000, what does that translate to for the ending fund balance in 2026, and how does that compare to our minimum reserve requirements? And what we see here is our 2026 minimum reserve requirements is 2.2 million. And as a reminder, council, that equates to 2 months or 16.7% of operating expenses. And as you recall, that was a policy that the council discussed and adopted last year. With that additional 488,000, that would bring our total fund balance at the end of 2026 to 4,884,000, which includes the 685,000 that council wishes to set aside for police services. So the difference between the minimum reserve requirement and our projected ending balance is 2,658,000. And again, this would be available to use as a bridge for funding police services in 2027 and 2028. Now, it's important to recognize that the use of these reserves could be minimized or avoided completely, depending upon the extent that we raise additional new revenues, either through economic development or through additional taxes. For example, the criminal justice sales tax that Councilmember Torgerson mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. So for the listening public, I think there's been a few questions about the cost of police services over the next several years and how do we pay for that. Let me walk you through the slide, council, and then we'll talk about the mechanics of this. So for each year, 26 through 2031, you see 2 stacked bars. The one on the left represents police service expenses, and then on the right represents estimated revenues. Starting with the year 2026, for example, the total cost of police services is about 3.3 million, as I mentioned earlier, and that includes a portion that includes the one-time transition costs for King County, and then the balance represents the ongoing cost of police services. And then the column on the right represents the existing revenues that we have. In other words, the amount of budget that we have under the Snoqualmie Police contract. And then the blue portion represents the amount of services reductions that, again, the administration has taken or authorized over the next several years. So as we go forward into 2027 and 2028, we see that on the revenue side, we have a continuation of existing city revenues, the continuation of administrative reductions in services. The purple portion represents the anticipated revenues under a criminal justice sales tax, if council were to approve that. And it's important to note that for the listening public that has not yet been approved. But if the city were to approve that, then we would have additional revenues to count towards police services. In 2027, the green portion represents the 685,000 the council wishes to set aside for police services. And then the black portion represents the use of ending fund balance. Again, going back to the previous slide, the 4.88 million that's available for city services, and then the differential of 2.658 million that is over and above the minimum reserve target. So that 2.658 million is available to go towards funding police services in 2027 and 2028. And that's represented by the black portion of this graphic here in those 2 years. Where the decision point comes for council is in the year 2029. And what we see here is there is a gray portion of the stacked bar, and that represents additional revenues that we would need either from economic development, a new source of tax revenues, or additional reductions in services. So I'm gonna pause there just for a second. Answer any questions you might have on this.
Ms. Torgerson, I see your hand up.
So on the graph, what is this? It says CJ sales tax, and you have it looks like a dollar amount in there. What is that dollar amount for the purple for 2027?
It's about $350,000.
Okay, and then when we go to 29, the gray area that we don't have a way to figure out how to pay for yet, what is that dollar amount?
1.7 million.
Okay, and is it 1.7 for the other following 2 years as well? Or?
No, because of the expected cost of policing services to increase, that gray bar increases over time as well. So it's 1.7 million in 2029, 1.9 million in 2030, and about 1.9 million as well in the year 2031.
And if we didn't do the CJ7 tax, then we would add the 300, those dollar amounts are $350,000 as well for 29, 30, and 31?
That's correct. Any other questions?
Ms. Rustic.
Just for the clarification, it's titled Reductions in Services, the blue bar. Can you, for the listening public, comment on what does that mean and
Sure.
what does that look like?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, the blue portion represents the reductions in services that the mayor had determined in conjunction with the department directors. And the majority of those reductions were in areas such as professional services, operational line items, basically items that did not fundamentally degrade our services to the community. However, it's important to note, Councilwoman Rustic, that by taking those reductions, that we've basically removed almost all flexibility from the city operations to absorb any additional unanticipated events within the general fund. Now, that does take me to the next slide, next and final slide. So a natural question from the general public would be...
Excuse me, Mr. McFarland.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you move on, Martin, I've got a lot of catching up to do. I just wanted to confirm that I understood you correctly. You said a few slides back showing the reserves that were significantly higher, it might be the right word, than council approved policy, right? There's a pretty good gap, which is favorable.
Correct.
In that respect. Thank you. I assume that's going to be the subject of a lot of conversations on how to leverage that, as you mentioned, to police. I'm curious if you could just toss at me the top couple of reasons why we're so flush in reserves.
Sure. I think that probably goes back several years, Council, to the city's overall management of the operations of the general fund. Number one, I think the city has been fairly conservative in the management of our operations within the general fund. So that's allowed us to develop a healthier fund balance relative to target. The second is, as you remember, we went through a very strong economic period in the early, just prior to the pandemic. And that's allowed us to build up our reserves further. And we can see evidence of that, Councilman, in the community where we see the new homes being built, the new subdivisions. All those new homes that we see in the community and the growth in the population with the community has added residents, but it has also added revenues to the city in the form of tax revenues, development fees. So that's added to the to our piggy bank, so to speak, for the general fund balance.
Thank you.
Mr. Jocelyn.
Yes, thank you. Director, I just wanted to be, this is, if you could go to slide 5, the long-term funding strategy. Yes. I think it's important to be clear that if we look at 2026 and then we get to 2027, there's a significant jump in expenditure. And it's important to understand that that is not because we're transitioning necessarily to the cost for this year, the 3 months that we're paying Snoqualmie Police Services is less per month than the amount of money that we're paying to King County on a monthly basis, because we're going to be operating under the flex model. And then if I'm not wrong, what's reflected in that, the significant jump in 2027 in overall cost is transitioning to a full city contractual model. We become a contract city with a more coverage, essentially. Is that correct?
That's correct. So again, for the listening public, in 2020, so let's back up. In 2025, under our current contract with the city of Snoqualmie, our coverage included 1 officer in the city and 1 supervising sergeant that floated between the 2 cities, Snoqualmie and North Bend. In 2026, that same model under Snoqualmie covers services for the first 3 months of 2026. And for the last 9 months of 26, would be covered under what's called the flex model. And under this model, the county would provide 2 officers coverage in the city. However, those officers would also be available to respond to calls within the unincorporated areas of King County. Starting in 2027, we shift to what's called a dedicated services model. And the reason why, again, for the listening public, why that cost jumps between 2026 and 2027 is, in starting in 2027, we will be under a full contract with King County with 2 officers dedicated to the city 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The only exception would be over the graveyard shift, midnight to 6 a.m., where the county would provide coverage at only 1 officer for the city.
Mr. Tremolata.
On this graph too, so just obviously it's clear where this is only discussing the gap for police services. So over that 5-year period for public safety, if Eastside Fire and Rescue costs go increase over a 5-year period, that gap, that gray bar will increase over that.
That's correct. So to the extent that our other areas of risk, Councilman, that would stress our general fund includes potential increases in our EFR contract, Eastside Fire and Rescue, increases to our public defense contract. As you recall, there's a Supreme Court ruling to reduce the caseload standards for public defenders. And the other area of risk within public safety would be our jail costs and the cost of mental health care for inmates. Next slide, please. Again, this is the last slide of my presentation. But again, on the previous slide, Councilwoman Torgerson asked about the gray bars and the amount of the amount of the gap that the city would need to seek starting in 2029. And again, as a reminder, that equates to about between 1.7 to 1.9 million a year. Well, natural question, council, would be, well, can the city cut its way out of this? The purpose of slide 6 is to show you, council, as well as the listening public, where the city's general fund monies go. And as you can see on the far right, the 2026 budget is valued at 13.3 million. This is after considering the administrative service reductions that I mentioned earlier. Of that 13.3 million, half of it is used to pay for contracts, and that's shown under column 4B. And as you can see, I annotated the various amounts and what we used those monies to pay for, the largest of which is under public safety for jail, Eastside Fire and Rescue, and police. And as you can see, for other areas of expense, we have the next largest one is for legal costs, city attorney, municipal court, prosecution, public defense. And then the next largest one under that would be our human services allocations. Ms. Escobar, I will be speaking to that later on in this meeting. Now, outside of contracts, council, we see that our next biggest area of expense includes transfers out. This is column number 8 at 1.47 million. And these are transfers, these are policy transfers, but these are transfers that we make out of the general fund into other parts of the city to pay for services in those parts of city operations. The largest of which, as you can see, is for public safety, which includes street operations and street overlay. An example of this for the listening public is the overlay that we did out here on Cedar Falls Way. That project was paid for out of the funds that we were transferring out from the general fund. We also have funds coming out of the general fund for economic development, as well as for affordable housing. And then a small amount for parks equipment replacement, which was referred to earlier by the previous speaker regarding the Parks Commission's work. So outside of those areas, council, we also have spending within professional services under column 4A. A big portion of that is for insurance through the Association of Washington Cities, for facilities maintenance. Again, this is for janitorial services, for city buildings, and information technology expenses. Your laptops, the technology that you see in this room. And then we have development review expenses. And it's important to note that for listening public and for council as well, the development review expenses is revenue backed. So these represent the payments that we make to contract with contract engineers to perform, for example, geotechnical analysis on development projects. Those expenses are reimbursed by the developer. Outside of that, we have supplies under column 3. And as you can see, that's a minimal amount at less than $60,000. And after consideration of all the non-labor expenses, then what's remaining is columns 1 and 2, which would be staff wages and benefits. So again, thinking back to the previous slide, on slide 5, we're looking for a gap of about between 1.7 to 1.9 million. And if we wanted to close that gap solely through administrative service or service reductions, we meaning staff, and specifically myself and Amber, we would need guidance from council as to what specific areas that's listed on this page you wish us to take a look at for reductions.
Ms. Torgerson.
Yeah, under wages, you have a total of 2.5 million, and then you've got benefits. I remember on the budget for 2026, it was around 9 million was the dollar amount. So
you may be
what am I missing?
You may be thinking of a citywide budget. So the rest of it, Councilwoman Torgerson, would be our public works employees who are paid
Okay.
for out of the utilities.
So this is just a segment of our wages
Within the general fund.
within the general fund. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. McFarland.
Martin, again, I must be missing something. Professional fees for development review and community economic development, I think you just mentioned, are a pass-through.
Yes.
How do those then represent a savings?
They wouldn't. So those would not represent a true cost savings to the city. So by reducing development review professional expenses, the city would have a choice. The choice would be to either forego that work, that contracted work, and forego the revenues that would come in through the reimbursement, or try to bring that internal to the staff, which in this case we
So
would.
I understand the idea of if shifting what you can, keeping it internal. Staff cost is a fixed cost to that in that example. So that's your suggestion on the savings, because the other possibility is we actually don't review developments and therefore they don't get built and therefore we don't get that revenue.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And then if I could add, to the extent of that we attempt to internalize those services, Councilman, the question then for the city is, do we have the necessary skill set to replicate that same service in-house versus contracting it out?
Martin, if I can add that to that as well, is also the bandwidth. We also know that our staff is already overloaded, and if we're going to take anything more internally on, we need to look at that cost benefit analysis of timing and how we can get that done. But I think the key point of Martin's slide is really looking at number 8, as that's the policy decision before we get into staffing. But the key point to that is what revenue we could bring in the door before we look at any sort of reductions over the next 2 years.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mayor. That concludes my presentation. If council members, if you have any questions after this, feel free to send me an email.
Thank you, Mr. Chaw, for your very thorough presentation once again. Okay, Councilmember Rustick, will you please make the motion?
Yes, thank you. Motion to approve AB 26-004, an ordinance amending the 2025-2026 budget as adopted in ordinance number 1823 and is amended by ordinance 1826 and 1837 as a first and final reading.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Rustick and second by Mr. Johnson. Ms. Rustick, would you like to speak to your motion?
Well, I think we've had a great deal of conversation. Thank you, Martin, for the presentation. I'll just say, we've, as a council, and the administration have put in a lot of effort to take a look at our budgets for 2026. And I know that we'll continue to do that going forward, but at least in the near term, we have addressed some of the challenges, and I know we will continue to work and have conversations as we move forward. So I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I want to thank Martin for such a good presentation. And, I'm going on my 5th year here, and early on, we didn't have the financial guidance was a little unsettled. What we need as decision makers is solid information that's well-sourced, authoritative, and correct. And that's most important. And you more than clear that bar. And it really helps us in doing our job. While prospectively looking forward, there's concerns. The city is not going off the rails. We have some hard choices to make going forward. But it would be much more difficult absent your apt and due diligence in supporting us and providing us concise information that helps us understand complex matters. I certainly will be voting in support of this. I'm pleased that we are moving in a direction. It's concerning to me as a citizen that so much of our resources are continuing to go to fire and safety and police, but of course that's largely beyond our control, and it's a primary duty, I think, that and a interest we all share and are aware of, that if we want to start a conversation around service levels in those areas, that's a steep hill to climb to going forward. So I will be voting in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. Any other comments from council? No? Mr. McFarland, yeah.
As the newly minted third member of that committee, I'm following my betters in this regard. And one area that I'm not unfamiliar with is the quality of our finance director's abilities and background, having known him for quite some time. And so I would echo Councilmember Jocelyn's comments in that regard. And while I've got a long way to go to catch up with the budget overall, it's a very complex document created through a lot of meetings by the council and the staff. I can support this because I know of the support that it's got.
Thank you, sir. Did I miss anybody else? Comments?
I have a quick question.
Ms. Torkelson.
I'm going to say that I'm curious because this sounds like the budget modification that we had last November. And the reason we were told that we're moving it to 2026 was because we're waiting for King County ILA. And I know that hasn't occurred yet. So I'm curious as to what the city's decision when they changed their mind to go ahead and do it now versus for the ILA, which we were told last year.
I can answer that. So the King County ILA, when we discussed this, Councilwoman Torgerson, back in November, we did not have the King County ILA yet. We didn't have solid numbers yet from King County. I just received an email this afternoon from King County with the final interlocal agreement. And I plan to bring that to Public Health and Safety on February 3rd and bring council up to speed on, the Public Health and Safety Committee up to speed on that ILA. And then I would be happy to share that same presentation with this full council. In terms of the figures that were shown on slide 5 of your presentation, those figures, those expenses reflect the final figures that's included in the ILA that was received today from King County.
And a follow-up question. We received a letter from King County Sheriff's Office, I think it was in September. Is the number changed from that number or is it?
No. And just to clarify, Councilman Torgerson, that number that we received back in September, October last year, that was just for 1 year. That was for 2026. What I was waiting on is the county's forecast for what our expenses might be through 2031. And that's the reason for the delay of this budget amendment, because I wanted to be sure that the analysis I produced for you is based on solid figures from King County.
Let's go around one more time. Anybody else wish to comment or have a question? Okay. Motion before us is to approve AB 26-004, an ordinance amending the 2025-2026 budget as adopted, and ordinance number 1823, and as amended by ordinances 1826 and 1837 as a first and final reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 6, AB 26-005, motion authorizing agreement with NeoGov for human resource and payroll software. Ms. Morse, would you like to provide this report for us? Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. For the record, Elaine Morse, Deputy Finance Director. I'll refer you to item 6, page 43 of your packet and then to the screen here for a brief summarized presentation. This is Agenda Bill 26005, a motion to approve the NeoGov software and licensing agreement. The request was reviewed by the Finance and Administration Committee on January 13th with a due pass recommendation. NeoGov provides a human resource information system, otherwise known as an HRIS system, and replaces our current and highly labor-intensive payroll system. NeoGov is a more contemporary software specializing in public sector requirements. Next slide. So this is a list of benefits and risk factors that are mitigated for your review. HRS system supports entire employee lifecycle, automating recruitment, onboarding, offboarding, performance management, benefit administration, and so forth. We currently do not have an HRS system, which is recommended by SHRM as a best practice, and that's Society of Human Resource Management. NeoGov provides regulatory compliance and support with the IRS, federal labor laws, state of Washington unemployment and workers' compensation, along with Department of Retirement Systems compliance measures. There's currently no software integration of our HR and payroll workflow. This creates a burden of a dual entry system with risks of delays and incorrect data. NeoGov eliminates manual time and attendance entry, maintains our employment census, employee progress data and progression data, contract conditions for represented staff, and confidential data while safeguarding compliance measures. NeoGov provides a modernized workforce tool that we don't currently have. We don't have a time and attendance automation. Our time and attendance is taken by paper worksheets that are turned into payroll. And I think one of the bigger benefits of employee impact would be an actual portal, the handheld portal that people can use to look at their payroll information. There's a portal that allows staff, directors, managers, supervisors to view payroll information for their team. So it's very comprehensive and really modernizes our tools so that we have visibility that we currently don't. NeoGov is an Office of Financial Management approved vendor. In addition to the public sector payroll software, they manage and support all of the municipal and state government online employment listings. Other vendors that we considered were Paylocity and Paycom. Both had HRIS and payroll workflow and portals. They were comparable in cost, but those two did not have public sector compliance. So they weren't really supportive of government payroll types. So the 3-year cost impact with the NeoGov contract is $92,000. The status quo cost impact is $218,000 plus over 3 years. And our operational cost savings are $126,000 plus over a 3-year period. The cost of the software, the one-time fees would be allocated to the technology fund, and then the general fund and other funds would pick up the remainder cost year over year, 37% to the general fund and 63% to other funds. Do you guys have questions for me?
Council, Ms. Colin?
Sure. So if you're getting the software to monitor staff time, is there going to be a requirement for people to log in and log out from work? That is the case at my work.
Yes, yes. So they'll have the opportunity to log in and out either on a mobile device or at a keypad at Public Works, at City Hall, at the wastewater treatment plant and so forth. Rather than tracking on paper.
Mr. Tremoletta.
Yeah, and so there is an end user dashboard for the employee as well. It's not
Yes.
just, okay.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to see hours worked, tax documents, all that, be able to.
Absolutely. They'll have access to all of it and have some ability to make changes to things like beneficiaries, addresses,
Yep.
some of those pieces, right, come to a permission level for somebody in payroll or Aaron, for example, in HR.
Sounds great. Long overdue, probably.
Yes.
Any other questions? Oh, Ms. Torgerson and then Ms. Rustick.
When would the timeframe be? Would it be fully installed?
Great question. Well, I'm excited. I'd be excited to begin in April. Well, actually sooner than that for the HRIS component because there's a lot of manual information to port into the software. But we'd like to begin in April to begin running payroll through that system and linking the services.
And follow-up question. How is that going to affect when the finance committee is approving of checks via AP or payroll checks?
Well, it can do a couple, and we can continue to do. I know where you're going with this. We can continue to do, present manual documentation. But the beauty of this system is that Councilmember Elwood, I know we've talked about this before, but the beauty of this is that we can potentially allow for virtual approval by council members so that you'll have all of the information laid out in front of you in an online environment, a secure online environment.
I love that, the fact that we're getting a new system and we're saving a lot of money. I think that's brilliant.
Ms. Rustick.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe this is a good segue after Councilmember Torgenson's question. The year one cost, is that significantly lower than the year three cost because it's not a full year? I can't remember if we talked about that in finance.
Yeah, great question. The year one cost is lower because NeoGov worked with us, or we worked with them actually to bring the cost down as much as we could so that we had a lower entry point. So they reduced our licensing, our setup fees, by 60%. And then our licensing cost by 40%. So they gave us an easier entry point in the first 3 years. So they staggered the cost. So we won't realize a full year cost that they would normally charge until year 3.
So we can anticipate then after year three, potentially just going up annually by some cost of living type.
So if you take a look, if
I think I
have a
read it
chance to
somewhere.
look at the agenda,
couldn't
then
remember.
you'll see those costs accelerate.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Justin.
It's if you look at table 1, there's a footnote, and that explains there's where the information is that you're after, council member. And the year 4 cost is $55,000 some odd dollars.
Okay, did I catch everybody? No comments? All right, Ms. Rustick, would you please take the motion?
Thank you. Motion to approve AB 26-005, authorizing the mayor to enter into a licensing agreement with NeoGov for human resources and payroll software services in a form and content acceptable to the city attorney.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Ms. Rustick and second by Ms. Torgerson. Ms. Rustick, would you like to add to your motion or comment? Excuse me.
I definitely can appreciate and understand the value that going this route takes. I think that it makes complete sense. I'm a little concerned about the ongoing costs, but I think, it's something that we can get started and potentially reevaluate in the future if we're start getting concerned about costs. I know how sometimes these software licenses go. So Anyway, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Torgerson.
I'm excited about it. New technology, it's going to make processing for everything easier, faster, work, not work as hard. So I think this is great. And the fact that the price is good, all of it sounds good to me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other council wish to comment? Okay, seeing none, the motion before us is to approve AB 26-005, authorizing the mayor to enter into a licensing agreement with NeoGov for human resource and payroll software services in a form and content acceptable to the city attorney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, one and all. Item number 7, AB 26-006, motion authorizing contract with Valley Defenders for public defender services. Ms. Escobar, I'm calling on you tonight to introduce this to staff.
Okay.
Thank you.
So until 2024, we contracted for indigent defense services through an ILA with the city of Issaquah and the city of Snoqualmie. In 2024, we were informed that we would no longer be included in an ILA and would need to contract with Valley Defenders independently, which we did for 2025. We now have a contract renewal for 2026. During our time in contracting services with Valley Defenders, we have had no service issues. In June 2025, Washington's Supreme Court ordered new caseload standards for indigent defense services. The annual caseloads per attorney needed to be reduced from the 2012 standards of 400 per year per attorney to 120 per year per attorney. Originally, there was a 10-year phase-in timeframe, but in November 2025, the Supreme Court clarified the order by stating that the reduced caseloads be implemented as soon as reasonably possible. Each year, the cases per year will drop until they hit the 120 cases per year. For the past 3 years, our caseloads have leveled off between 150 and 180 per year. Based on our current caseload numbers, Valley Defenders is allocated between 0.5 and 0.7 for North Bend. There is a clause in the contract that allows for an increase or decrease of FTE depending on the cases filed. Because we are transitioning to King County Sheriff's Office from Snoqualmie Police, we don't know for sure how to predict the number of cases that will be filed. So this ability to increase or decrease the FTE is helpful. When we went from King County Sheriff's Office to Snoqualmie Police, that first year there was an increase in cases filed until it began to level off. The cost for 2026 is $209,905.28. This was brought to Public Health and Safety on January 6th. It was recommended for approval and placed on the main agenda for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Escobar. Any clarifying questions, Mr. Tremolata?
I probably should have asked this before, but just for my education and maybe others, is Valley Defenders sort of a one-shop opportunity? Are there others in the future we could look at if the costs became too much to handle, so to speak? Or, I mean, I think it makes sense in this case. We've been using them through the other ILA. I don't necessarily see a reason to change, but from a comparison's sake, are there other opportunities to look into? I'm just not aware of how this works.
There are other opportunities. It just will be limited on who Issaquah Court actually assigns cases to. So it'll be limited on the court's breadth to be able to assign public defenders. So that's just one of their main defense offices that they use. So because we contract with Issaquah Municipal Court, that would be who they assign. So we can look at that. That is on the list. Mayor Pro Tem at the end of this year to evaluate, and also evaluate at the beginning, in the middle of the year, as Ms. Escobar said, depending on our caseload standards and how they change with King County. But it's something that we'll continue to evaluate, and we let Sean know at Valley Public Defenders that will be looking at all options, depending on, they have gotten, so you'll see at the caseloads, they got really aggressive to get that number down at the beginning. That's why we have the big jump, and hopefully that will start to lessen over the years to get down to the caseload standard that is required by the Supreme Court. but they have an aggressive start right off the get-go, and that's caused the jump that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I think my concern is, right, like, if we're contracting with City of Issaquah and they're signing the cases, yet we're still quote unquote negotiating a rate where they're getting fed the business, it's tough to negotiate that rate, right? There's nowhere.
Yeah, it just depends on the pool of defenders that they have
Yeah.
available to them. In any court, you're gonna fall into that equation. It depends on the nexus that they have around the court.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
then just to add to that, in 2024, when we had to go independently, we did look at another firm and they were higher in price. So we stayed with Valley Defenders.
Thank you. Any other clarifying questions? No. Seeing none, Ms. Rustick. Mr. Elwood, excuse me, my apologies.
Okay, I mean,
Certainly my apologies.
wanting to jump in on it? How about it?
I haven't said a hi to you yet, I swear. Okay,
Take
it away, sir.
Thank you. Motion to approve AB 26-006, authorizing the mayor to execute and administer a contract with Valley Defenders for public defender services in a form and content acceptable to the city attorney.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second? Okay, motion by Mr. Elwood and second by Ms. Colon. Mr. Elwood, would you like to comment to your motion?
No, I'm assuming all my colleagues heard Ms. Escobar's introduction, so I think we're good.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Colon, would you like to comment as well?
I feel like it's housekeeping. We have to do it. And we're doing it.
Hey, I don't want to miss anybody, so speak up now if you have any more comments to make. Okay, the motion before us is to approve AB 26-006, authorizing the mayor to execute and administer contract with Valley Defenders for public defender services in a form and content acceptable to the city attorney. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody. Motion passes unanimously. Now we're on to our very last item, item number 8, AB 26-007, confirming 2026 Human Community Services Grant Funding. Ms. Escobar, back to you. We'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you again.
We deeply value and appreciate the, we deeply value and appreciate the nonprofit organizations that support our community in many ways. We have a grant request process that has enabled organizations to request funds, report on how they plan to use them to benefit North Bend community members, and then report back with data on the effectiveness of their efforts. This year, we had 16 requests for grants totaling $347,000. In 2024 and 2025, we allocated $249,000 for grants. Our finance director, fabulous finance director, budgeted the same amount for this year to align with the mayor's recommendation. The mayor's recommendation was presented at the October 14th, 2025 work study. No decision was made at that time regarding allocation of funds. On October 25th, 2025, at another work study, there was another robust conversation about grant requests. At that meeting, council gave guidance to the executive team to reduce the funds to $200,000 and to decide where to allocate the funds. We used the guiding principles: hardest hit due to federal funding cuts, availability of other non-city sources of funding, and whether the organization focused on community services versus community building. As you can read in the memo provided, the Snoqualmie Valley Food Bank and the Mount Si Senior Center have been significantly affected by federal funding reductions. Reclaim is finding an increased demand due to a shortage of affordable housing and rising costs of living. Friends of the Trail plays a critical role in our cherished natural spaces and works alongside law enforcement to clean up homeless encampments, as well as provide court-assigned community service opportunities to support full integration of offenders into productive society. Trail Youth focuses on supporting our vulnerable teen population by providing a safe, welcoming space that is non-judgmental and provides opportunities for teens to connect with one another. Teens can gain confidence, communication skills, and work experience. While all the nonprofit organizations are important, have significant financial needs, and provide much needed services and support, the executive team used our guiding principles to narrow down the organizations to receive the funding that you can see above.
Okay, does council have any questions? Ms. Colon.
Just because they are my favorite thing, Meadowbrook Farm, could we get some money for them that is not on this list? Because they really have no money.
Thank you, Ms. Colon. Anybody else? Oh, Ms. Torgerson.
It says on the agenda bill to see the memo attached. And on the memo attached, it said 17 requests and you said there were 16. So I wasn't sure which number was the correct one.
It's 16, 17 in the past, but this year the one
16,
did
okay.
not request.
And so now this is more of like a clarification on how we do things. When I believe Susie uploads this somewhere for retrieval at a later date, does this memo get attached to the agenda so that, like, let's say 2 years from now, we want to go back and look at it, we can see the details that's in this memo? Is that attached when you upload?
The memo's in the council packet.
Yeah, because it says on the agenda bill, see the attached memo, and it's blank on the agenda. So, because this is good information on the memo, is that somehow attached when it's loaded for information later for documentation purposes?
Well, I do save all of the packets, the council packets. Those go to the state for archival, so they will be saved.
It'll be, but so like if I was to go up and research it, I'm going to see this memo as well.
Yeah, you can see it in the council packet. That's on the website. And that'll stay on the website.
Okay, that was what I was curious about. Thanks.
Any other clarifying questions? Mr. Elwood.
I think it's more of a refresh my mind, my memory on this. Because I see quite a few organizations that we've historically funded throughout the years. And I understand that we had to tighten our belts this last year. But I think maybe my first question is the mayor's recommendation versus what was asked by the organization, what disparities may exist there. And the reason why I ask that is that if certain organizations like Reclaim, and I do respect and value what service they provide, was asking for $25,000 and the executive team determined $65,000, is that $40,000 more than what they were asking for? Or was Reclaim asking for a certain amount that was larger than that? And the reason why I ask that is because we do have a lot of smaller organizations that in the grand scheme of things are really pennies on the overall budget dollars. And I'm just looking at some of these numbers going, well, couldn't we spread the wealth a little bit more on certain ones of these? So I guess I'm trying to understand how we got to some very big figures for a few key services. And I don't disagree that we need to fund them. But how do we reconcile not spreading the wealth for some of the smaller organizations that do community service building, which is critical for a healthy community on this scale? So I'm trying to understand what was asked, mayor recommendation, executive team final, because I think to the point that my colleague just pointed out here, Meadowbrook Farm Association is funded through 2 cities, through our ILA, and a couple other things. So I'm just trying to understand the distribution of the final decision-making processes here.
Mayor, I can touch on that, and then Lisa, please
I can
add to that. So when we were given the guidance at the work study to look at how we could spread the $200,000 around, reducing that from the 249, when those were submitted to the city, we had not seen the final cuts of all the federal impact that was going to be hit. So when we engaged with folks at that time, when we were looking at these allocations, the reductions were much more significant than they were expecting. So you see the food bank at a higher cost, Reclaim at a higher cost. And we don't disagree. Also, Councilmember Elwood, that the smaller agencies, we can funnel some money. But with the 200,000, if council wants something different, the only caveat I will have is that we need to get these cut by the end of January. That's our typical timeline. So if we have any direction tonight that we want to take something from one and divvy it down or stay at the 2,000, we need that information tonight so we can finalize that and get that cut. So we're open to that, but this is the final stab that we did after we reached out to the agencies with the federal cuts.
No, and I appreciate that because I know there was a lot of thought that went in that, and I hope it didn't come across as
No.
though, okay,
Yeah.
good.
No, not at
I
all.
respect that you
No.
guys respect all the community. And adding that, those guiding principles are critical, especially with the federal funding.
And if
cuts.
we want to change anything, let us know. We're happy to do it, but this is what we did with the 200,000 and why with the federal cuts. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, I see you there.
Yes, same question, or combining those two inquiries. Do we know what the ask was from Meadowbrook Farm Preservation Association for 2026?
$3,300.
That was their request.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was the mayor recommendation as well.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. McFarland?
Gee, I was really hoping I'd hear more from my fellow colleagues before I came on here. I'm baffled. Yeah, well, clarifying questions. So I don't understand in the way that this is presented, Mayor, if this is your recommendation or this is a staff recommendation.
Well, to be perfectly clear, this was coming from council talking to us, wanting to dial it down $50,000. We took a stab to look at the times we were in, which were very challenging back in the day, and take a look at the layering of who's going to be most definitely hardest impact. And that's not an easy thing to just kind of float. So we started with this. This is not a thought. We can get other direction tonight too. So I would love to give to everybody. Are you kidding me? I'd love to keep it at 20.
So if I understand, am I understanding correctly that what's listed in the mayor's recommendation column, that was what was in the original budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And during, as was said by staff, during work studies in October is when council suggested to limit to 200. Okay.
Correct.
But is it then your revised recommendation limiting to 200 where these monies in the executive team recommendation, or is this the executive team's recommendation?
I support the executive team's recommendation. However, in a perfect world, I would say, let's stick with the 250,000, giving it to everybody. That was my fullest recommendation, would still be that.
Thank you for the clarification.
I hope I clarified. Mr. Tremolata.
Yeah, so I somewhat agree with your thoughts, Mayor, but I think if that's the case, and maybe I'm tracking where Councilmember Elwood was going, why would, I guess my initial thought when I was going to see this was that if we were going to keep all the takers on your original recommendation with maybe a little bit of a haircut from some others to get to the 200 so that everyone's getting a piece of the pie. That was, I think, my expectation coming out of that work study. But so this reads oddly to me, but I'm following your thought process of let's try to give to everyone.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
I agree with Councilmember Tremolata and Elwood. I think we can spread the wealth a little bit better to our people that are used to getting it, and now we're giving them nothing.
Ferguson.
Yeah, I was kind of under the impression that we were going to do the haircut on everybody and everybody was still going to get something. That was my impression when we left the meeting. So I would feel better if we were doing more like that. I mean, we needed to do something, bring it down to 200,000 because we are under tough times as well. But I think everybody should get a little bit. So that's kind of where, when I left the work study, that's what I thought our thinking was.
If I could just reiterate that when we left the work study, we were told just to make the decision without any kind of clarification that we would be cutting. from each person or each group. But the other thing that I want to stress is that we did budget 249,000. It was in the budget for human services.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion that this council move to authorize social services funding for 2026 following the mayor's recommendation as it's listed on the November 3rd, 2025, totaling $249,000 in expenditures.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Jelston and second by Mr. Elwood. Would you like to speak to your motion there?
Yeah, times are tough.
Yeah.
Folks are suffering. Our community is made richer by the contributions of many. And while I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's gone in and appreciate the executive team's recommendations, I would like to be more broad-minded and spread the wealth. I will admit I was not supportive of cutting $49,000 at the time. So part of it is self-serving. I totally own that I think this city, even in these times, is able to support those who are least well off. As we know, the cost of living here is excessive for many, and all of these folks in different ways and for different reasons, but from their hearts, are contributing every day in significant ways to benefit folks who are most in need. And given that the time is short, this has to be addressed by the end of this month, and we're not going to have another opportunity. We could be here a long time as a group trying to sort this out this evening. But I believe that the mayor's recommendation, as listed here, comes so much closer to what I personally would support. And listening to the questions that have been raised, I believe other council members here tonight are of a similar mind, as opposed to what's come forward as the executive team's recommendation. Thus the reason for my motion, and I would hope for other council members' support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Elwood, any comments to make?
Yeah, I know when we were making these decisions last year, we're looking at different numbers. I believe the budget analysis that Mr. Chow presented us made me more optimistic about the short-term gains. And I do agree that I was expecting for a different distribution, even though I understand the fact, oh, okay, go figure it out. But I didn't think that there was only going to be 3 or 4 organizations that were actually going to get the bulk of the funding, right? So, I mean, and it's fine. It is what it panned out. But also understanding, to the point that Ms. Emery raised, as the impacts of the federal cuts are slowly starting to become more real in our community, when we make a decision in October or November, even December, things start to escalate and ramp up rapidly. And when you start seeing it more in the community and we start having more of these conversations and more folks are being impacted and we're actually seeing that effect, it makes one like myself start to rethink some tightening of the wallet decisions that I've made personally, just because I'm starting to see those effects starting to trickle through real time. So I would support the motion to go back to the original 249 or 250,000, whatever it was. And I'm fine with the distribution as is, as was originally presented. But I would also like to point out that, Mayor, it would have been good to know what your official recommendation was from this, understanding that the staff did put their work forward. So yes, please, those is just my point of view. Thank you.
Anybody else? Tremlott.
I have I guess another question now with that motion on the floor. If we're going to vote on that, could we just walk through for the public or the record, I would say, the items that have the hyphen, and then also clarify the fund for CED for North Bend Arts and Industry, so everyone's aware of how that original mayor recommendation reads. Like, for example, the CarePoint Clinic apply, and then it was, what does the hyphen represent in that?
So I'll take that one and then you can do the CED. Okay. So CarePoint was a new organization that applied for a grant in 2025. And what we had decided to do is to keep the allocation to the same organizations that we did in 2024. And so we just kept it consistent. And so that was the thinking for 2026 as well, when with a few alterations based on what we were able to do with arts and industry, which I'll let.
So is that with all three hyphens are the same, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and regarding North Bend Art and Industry, there's actually funding within the Economic Development Division that would support startups and innovation. And so the idea would be to draw funds from that funding stream to support North Bend Art and Industry and the new artists that are coming to that organization.
And so that is there regardless of how council takes action.
Yeah, that's currently funded.
Yeah. I get everybody? Yeah. Mr. Russ.
So I think there are two items here for consideration. This council did have conversation about, the budget and where we could begin cutting budget. I guess we collectively gave direction that we would reduce the budget by the 49,000. And then we gave the authority to the mayor and the executive team to come up with, their recommendations. And we did have conversations about, some organizations were harder hit by the federal funding cuts, and there is availability of other sources of funding for some of these organizations. So I guess, like I said, it's twofold. It's the reduction of the budget that we did intentionally discuss, and then it was how it was allocated. So I am actually not in favor of us not sticking to our conversation about trying to reduce budget overall. So I just wanted to share that perspective. I am open to conversation about distributions. I feel, though, that this is the first year that I've been on council where there was at least a criteria that was associated. I don't know how some of these others might fit against this criteria, or if there's a criteria add to this that would, help us with this conversation in the future. I'd also, final point is, this is for 2026, and we can obviously, whatever our decision tonight, make adjustments in the future. So.
Ms. Rustick, just for a point of clarification, when you say criteria, these are the asks from the
Right.
nonprofits themselves. Is that can be confirmed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
But the final decision was based on the hardest hit we've certainly seen in 2026, these organizations, some of them have been hit very severely by the federal funding cuts. So that's kind of a new element that we hadn't considered, at least in the years that I've been on council. So thank you.
In my memory as a council member, we used to discuss how to divvy up the donation money as a group in a work study. And it's always hard to do that. But that is what we have done in years past. And just like this year, we used to have decision cards to divvy up money through our staff, and we're not doing that either. But I feel like as a group, it would have been nice to try to divvy this up better.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Torgerson.
And I think we put it was a tough decision during that work study to say we need to reduce this, but because we're looking at the landscape and we know things are hard. And my impression is that we would have reduced it all because I think it's like 80% is what the number comes out to be. Reduce all of them by 80% and have them all be able to receive some funds from us. And I would feel better if we stuck with our original thought of keeping changing it to 200,000, because we got a lot of more tough decisions to make with the budget this year. And I feel like if we do a little bit here and there, it's going to make the other parts that we have to make decisions on not as big numbers, if we're doing a little bit here and there. So I just feel like well, I would love to give them all money as well. I mean, we do have some tough budget decisions to make. So I think I would stick with the 200,000 and I would like to reallocate it to all the people and being 80% of what they asked for.
Okay, thank you. So you're wanting to make a motion on top of that?
No, I'm not making, I'm just saying my opinion.
Oh, okay. Thank you for your opinion. Mr. McFarland.
So first off, we're not even talking about a rounding error in the budget. And so we're spending a lot of time on that. Yet it is one of the most community impactful things that this council does and talks about. And I appreciate the comment that was made by my colleague in regard to, in the past, this has always been worked out, very difficult, very long conversations at a council work study. And that's part of what threw me to see this pushed forward today. I believe what I heard, and I'm going to take as the understanding of why it's sitting here in front of us today, is the notion that we have a timeline at the end of the month and it needs to be put forward. I'm not aware of any ordinance or similar that requires us to make that decision. We have done that. Of course, the agencies are in need of their funding and we want to get that money to them. But it did not have to come in front of this council in this way tonight. And so I appreciate what I'm hearing from the council members who are being thrown off by that. In regard to the motion, yeah, I had a similar notion in mind. I want to, again, stick with the majority. I'm very disappointed in the executive recommendation. Honestly, it feels a little orchestrated to result in exactly the conversation that's going on. And that's what you're going to hear from me more, is that I'm not going to pull many punches in this term. I was the nice guy before. I'm going to be a little more proactive in my speech going forward. Thank you.
Sir, have we caught everybody? Okay, what's our motion on the floor? Motion to authorize the mayor to approve social service recommendations for 2025, the total of 249,000. Anything more I can add to that?
I would say page 65 in the packet with your mayor recommendations.
Page 65 in the packet, yep. Okay, in the packet. Page 65 in the packet. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay. Nay.
Nay.
3 nays, and it does pass at 4 and 3 nays. Okay, moving on to mayor, council, and administrative concerns and initiatives. Mr. L, would you like to fill us in tonight? Your thoughts?
I'm good. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Torgerson.
I'm good.
Ms. Cohen.
I have some.
Excellent.
So it's been a real rough 2025, but it's called a peace walk with the monks, and they're walking from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C., 2,300 miles, and it's all over social media. And it gives me so much peace in my heart to watch the monks walking and the people giving them flowers, and they have a dog named Loka. And it makes my heart happy. Aside from that, yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and I have a quote. And it says, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rustick.
Yes, thank you. So it is Girl Scout cookie time coming up. So the Girl Scout cookies are more than a delicious treat. They're entrepreneurial building blocks for Girl Scouts to create a more equitable future for themselves and the world. And the proceeds from each purchase stay local and fund their ambitions and exploration, like STEAM badges, camp experiences, travel, and community service projects. So over the next 2 months, when you see the Girl Scouts, think about what it does more than just purchasing cookies. It adds value to our community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Wonderful, Mr. Tremolata.
Yes, two things briefly. First, I want to congratulate Ignite Dance, our local dance studio. They were the regional studio, top studio in the region this weekend. So big award for Katie Black and the whole team over there, which was awesome. And then, as I stated last meeting, I will make it a intention in 2026 to discuss mental health. Mental health matters. Don't let the hard days win. Reach out for help. Check in with your friends. Just a phone call, a text, a cup of coffee can mean more than you realize. Notion that I read during this preparation was that my dark days made me stronger, or maybe I already was strong and they made me prove it. Let's keep the conversation about mental health unashamed and out in the open. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jocelyn.
Yes, I want to say how much I appreciate all of you, staff as well. Chief Horsey, thank you. These are rough times. I'm going to cycle back to last year for a minute because I have failed until now, as I think has every member of this council, to acknowledge that the Mount Si High School girls soccer team won state this year. So as someone who had a daughter that went through that program and two sons who, the boys soccer team, if I'm not wrong, won state just last year, that's a big deal. I mean, that's a really big deal. And I've been meaning to do that. Earlier this evening in the Public Health and Safety Committee report, Councilmember Elwood referenced conversations about immigration and customs enforcement questions around ICE. The federal budget continuing resolution that's moving forward and looks likely to pass has $10 billion. That's a huge number. Talk about here we are arguing over $49,000 in social services funding to help our little community here. And it's some of the hardest decisions we have to make is that $49,000. And yes, this country and the folks running it are advocating to allocate that kind of money. And the reason I bring this up is I want to share that 10 days ago, Friday, I have a brother who lives in Philadelphia, married, I don't know, 30, 40 years, and they adopted two children from Vietnam from an orphanage, from the same orphanage. And their daughter, Chi, from Vietnam, is an entirely legal U.S. citizen who carries a driver's license that's a real ID, that if anyone looks at it and not understands anything about documentation and whatchaminus knows that proves that you're a U.S. citizen beyond any question. And she was at work working for a third-party delivery service under contract to Amazon in an apartment building in North St. Paul and saw 6 vehicles stream into the parking lot, smash the window of the delivery van that a colleague that she was training was in, come up to the apartment that she was hiding in, enter the apartment, throw her to the ground, zip tie her hands together, and haul her off to a detention center. We worked diligently from here, as did my brother, who was at work. She could not remember her parents' phone numbers. They were both at work. She knew the landline at home, of course, but in this time of cell phones, she was terrified and traumatized. But of course, that's part of the point of all this. It was 7 o'clock that evening when, through lots of effort, she was let go. I mean, they have a part of the detention facility that's just for U.S. citizens. They know what they're doing. There was probably no record ever created of her arrest. It's intimidation by design, intentionally intended to inflict fear and exact compliance from us. I mean, I grew up in Minnesota. I have friends. I now read the Minneapolis Star and Tribune every morning, and it is not good for my mental health because I don't recognize the country that we're living in, and it scares me. But I, again, appreciate you all, this process, how we're working together to preserve what I believe to be the type of place that I want to live in, that we want to live in, the type of country that we used to live in. And I'm hoping going forward, we manage to hang on to it. As Councilmember Colin pointed, there's other people similarly concerned and struggling and doing what they can to hang on in these rough times. So I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McFarland.
Oh, wow. Last meeting, you didn't like following me. Thinking about comments from Councilmember Colin Tremolata and now especially Councilmember Jocelyn. I'm thankful for the diverse and supportive and caring community that we live in here. And when you hear things like that, it tells you how easy it is to lose that. This morning, I read an article published in The Atlantic back in September of 2015. I know you're not going to like this weird reference, but the Thudicles trap. If you don't know your ancient Greek philosophers, look it up. Deep state stuff, I suppose, but it was a sobering read on where we're headed. Yet more on my mind, I guess, tonight is Ohio. Not just because the only losses my beloved Ohio State were to the two finalists in the football championship last night, which I thoroughly enjoyed and liked the outcome of. However, no, I'm thinking of Ohio and of Minnesota and now of Pennsylvania in more practical terms. So again, I'm going to offer you a song. And I hope you'll look it up, and I hope you'll give it a listen, and I hope you will think about its message. And that is Ohio, written by Neil Young in 1970. I actually heard that he wrote a new one about what's going on now, not long ago. But I'll share two lines from Ohio. Soldiers are cutting us down. How can you run when you know? Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Emery.
No updates for me tonight. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, join me up for the Mayor Meetup series. It's going to be at a Rhett Coffee Bar located inside the Line Bicycle Shop in North Bend Way from City Hall, right across from City Hall, Wednesday, January 28th from 9 to 10 a.m. Friends of the North Bend Library will be holding their annual book sale at the North Bend Library, starting with a preview book sale on Wednesday, February 4th. And the book sale will run from Thursday, the 5th of February through Saturday, February 7th. Shop local with proceeds benefiting programming offered by the North Bend Library. For more information, please check out the North Bend Library's website. Suvvy Parks is holding an open house on Thursday, January 29th from 6:30 p.m. at 6:30 p.m., at the Skyview Community Center to gather input from the community regarding the planning of our new 6-acre park off 415th Way, SE, former site of the Snoqualmie Valley Riding Club. Just to add your words tonight, everybody at the dais tonight, towards the end of the evening, especially filled with pain and really moving stories. And I also agree that our mental health, including everybody out there in the entire world, needs to be recognized as something that we need to talk about and stop the stigma that's attached to it, first and foremost. Have open conversations, help each other as best you can, stay connected as best you can, and look out for yourself and your other components and other people in your life that you care about. Even your neighbors, always your neighbors, in fact. With that, I want to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you. Second. Okay. First, thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Take care.